Hello, lovely people. Uh, so today I want to play with a meditation that is all about supporting your business or your personal projects or your goals as though those specific things are their own entity. So I just went on live on Instagram to kind of explain the concept of this meditation, but I'm going to try and do it again, maybe a little bit more briefly. Just to say that kind of the paradigm, the current business paradigm that I can see starting to shift, but I can still feel is a spot where a lot of people get stuck, is the idea of all of our kind of projects and goals and personal aspirations or businesses or these things that we can ultimately think of ourselves as creating and then birthing. What happens currently is it's almost like we consider them an extension of ourselves, so a piece of ourselves, a part of ourselves, and whatever happens to this business goal, project, whatever it might be, if it fails, then we feel like we fail because we've made it part of ourselves. And that makes sense on one level, because like, for example, my coaching business, how it does is a reflection of me. And basically, I am the business. So if I'm not able to move the business forward, it kind of says that it's me, right? Because when we put so much of ourselves into something, we see that reflected back to us in the results or in the outcome of what we're creating. But the flaw in that is, what if we're not connected to the emotions of succeeding? What if we've never really built a big, huge business, so we have no idea how to approach it emotionally or energetically? Because once we are actually able to manifest it, we don't know what that feels like. So it's difficult to feel like we've succeeded. And if we do, we might not recognize it as success within the business. And then we look at ourselves and say, why am I not enough? What am I doing that's bringing me down? That's making it so that I can't create this thing for myself. And ultimately, that's not the best way to move forward with a project, a business, a goal, etc. Instead, what if we were to shift the paradigm and look at a business or a project or a goal as its own entity? And so instead, what if we got to hang out over here as its support system, almost like as our child, like we've nurtured and created this growing process, and then suddenly we get to birth something? What if we get to approach our goals as though they are not of us? There's something apart from us. So, yes, we've contributed to them. Yes, we've created them. But what's our relationship with that particular goal, business, project, whatever? And how does that change the way that we act in our business? And how does that change the way that we then get to look at ourselves? If I succeed, my business succeeds, but it doesn't have to be the other way around. If my business doesn't succeed, it doesn't mean that I'm a failure. It means that my relationship with that still gets to be just that, a relationship with my business or whatnot, so that I can come back over here and say, well, shoot, you don't feel as supported as you need to. How can I change that way of supporting for myself, instead of making it all about me, or instead of putting myself down? I honestly have been playing with this, and it has shifted my business and my personal goals and the way I look at what I'm aspiring to do, or what I'm shooting for. It makes me look at it entirely differently, and it almost feels like the blocks are kind of just moving away. So, this is a meditation that's really going to start to help define that relationship between you and your business. So, that was a little bit longer than I hoped for, but let's just dive into the meditation. If you've meditated with me before, you know there's no wrong way to meditate. I like to meditate sitting with my feet flat on the ground and my hands up and open. If that's not comfortable for you, get in a comfy spot and a comfy space. So that being said, we're going to do a 10 count deep breath, and then which means breathe in on the 1, out on the 2, and so forth for a count of 10. And then we're just going to dive into creating the details of that relationship with this separate entity of yours, this business or project or goal. So I invite you to close your eyes. Let's go ahead and take in that first deep breath, breathing in with the 1 and out with the 2, in with the 3, out with the 4, in with the 5, out with the 6, letting your body just melt a little bit more, in with the 7, out with the 8, in with the 9, last one, out with the 10. Now, wherever you're at, I invite you to take on your normal, natural breathing rhythm. And in this space right here, I invite you to just notice your breath. And additionally, notice the chest area. This is our heart space. This is our receiving space. This is the chakra all about love. Loving, being loved, compassion, being cherished. So we're going to bring the observation to this space as we focus on creating a loving and compassionate and supportive relationship with our business, our project, our goals, anything that we want to do or create moving forward. Noticing the breath come into that chest space. And as you bring your focus to this space, I invite you to relax the shoulders just a little bit more, open the chest, and allow for that oxygen to come in, oxygenate every cell that it comes in contact with. Imagine that breath coming into the body and revitalizing everything. Waking up your system. Amplifying who you get to be. And still observing and keeping the focus on this chest area, I invite you to envision your business or project or personal goal. I invite you to envision it and create the details of it as though it is a friend, a child, a sibling. It's a separate entity. It's its own entity. And as you create the details around this, I invite you to create positive details. What is your favorite thing about this entity, this friend, this thing that you've created and you are nurturing and supporting? What are your favorite parts about it? If it were a person, what would its greatest assets be? What kind of personality would it have? If you are putting in human details because it's a relationship with somebody or something, what does it look like? if it were to have a human appearance, what would your business or project or goal look like, feel like? How would it speak? How would it approach conversations? I even like to envision its laugh. How does this entity experience excitement, joy, motivation, contentment, positive emotions that we want for ourselves? And as you continue to create these details, I invite you to almost breathe in to the connection that you have with this particular entity. Breathe that into the chest. And as you exhale, I invite you to create a living, vibrant connection with that entity. So if it's your business or even a project, it's your baby, it's your best friend. And as you're creating this lifeline with this other entity, I invite you to solidify who you are in this relationship. But in reality, at the bottom of everything, it simply matters what you are contributing to this relationship. It simply matters how you are supporting the life of this other entity. Does this particular entity need to be introduced? Well, then maybe that's your next action. Does it simply need a hug? Then I invite you to envision yourself hugging this entity that is your business or your project or your goals. I invite you as your human self to enter into a very comfortable situation where you get to approach this entity. And as you approach it with such love and adoration. You hope the world for this entity. And when we love something and adore something to that extent, often we have an automatic want to support this entity, this project, this business unconditionally. Or at least, if not unconditionally, have our support be at the root of all of our actions moving forward within this relationship. I invite you to hug this entity in this space where you get to approach it. Share a small conversation, a brief conversation. What do you have to say to this entity moving forward? And now I invite you, after bringing your role to the table, after defining what this entity means to you and who you are within the relationship, I invite you to let it go, to move it forward into the world, and allow that entity to remember that you are there for support. And that entity is allowed to come to you for help, for movement forward, even just to hold your hand. And in this particular relationship, it's almost as though you are the eyes, the ears, the feet on the ground for this entity. Oftentimes they need your physical help to act, to help that entity be more visible to others. To reassess when that entity isn't quite getting the outcome that it was hoping for. You're the advisor for this entity. And as this entity moves away from you, out into the world, it looks back, checks on you, can wave to it. You're still here, you're solid. And it can come back and request help at any point. And you can simply support it. And the actions that you take moving forward have everything to do with supporting this entity. And they have nothing to do with who you are. They're just a reflection of your support and your strength and your love. So let's go ahead and solidify that relationship, that entity, and that support that you've brought to the table. Let's bring in 3 solidifying breaths. So in with the 1, and exhale. Breathing the love for whatever you are birthing and growing and creating. In with the 2. And exhale. And now in with the 3. Let's breathe in the idea that we are here to support. And we are confident in our ability to support with the actions we need to take to support this entity. And exhale. Now wherever you're at, I invite you to wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes. Open your eyes without judgment. Come back to the space that you're in, knowing that whatever you are wanting to create for yourself gets to be supported by you, but however it does has nothing to do with who you are. It simply has to do with the support that you are giving this separate entity. And thus it gets to be successful, wildly successful, because it's not about us. It's about this thing that we're supporting instead. And that's basically what we are, big balls of love. That is our core emotion at every human's core is love. So if we bring love to the table, we have to have success. It's inevitable. I love you all. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you soon.